So, what happens when you win a war for independence, but the revolution itself feels totally incomplete? Today, we're going to dive into a fascinating collection of historical documents. They tell the story of Mwakenya, a Kenyan underground political movement. And these guys, they believed their revolution had been stolen, and they were absolutely determined to take it back.
Yeah, so the material we're looking at today comes from this book, Mwakenya, The Unfinished Revolution. And what's so incredible about it is that it's a raw, first-hand account of this movement after independence. This isn't history written by someone else, looking back. No, this is history told through their own words, their manifestos, their secret leaflets, even their internal memos.
Each generation must discover its mission, fulfill it, or betray it. Wow. This quote from Frantz Fanon, which is right there in the book, really gets to the absolute heart of this whole story. It just perfectly captures the mindset of this group of people. You know, they looked at their brand new independent country, and they didn't see a victory. Not at all. They saw a mission that they believed the generation before them had completely betrayed.
So let's get right into it. What is this unfinished revolution they're talking about? Well, the central argument in all these documents is pretty simple, and it's powerful. It's the idea that the promise of Kenya's independence from Britain, it just never really happened. That the incredible struggle for freedom started by the Mama was basically cut off at the knees.
And this is absolutely crucial to understand. The people in the Mwakenya movement, they didn't see themselves as starting something new. Not at all. In their minds, they were just picking up the torch. They were continuing the fight that the Mau Mau had started, an anti-imperialist fight that they believed had been completely co-opted and sold out by Kenya's new leaders.
Now, where did this deep, bitter feeling of betrayal come from? Well, according to the source, it starts at the very moment of independence. Imagine the incredible hope in the air, right? But it's almost immediately followed by this crushing disillusionment. And really, that's the seed of this entire conflict. I mean, just look at this contrast. It is absolutely stark. On one side, you have the promise of uhuru, of freedom. People were expecting real change, social justice, land reform, and of course, for the heroes of the Mau Mau to finally be celebrated. But the reality under Jomo Kenyatta's new government, according to these documents, it was pretty much the opposite. The old colonial systems were kept in place, the new government was making friends with the former colonizers, and the Mau Mau, they weren't just ignored, they were actively pushed to the side.
And listen, this wasn't just an oversight. It wasn't just a matter of forgetting about the Mau Mau. The documents claimed this was a deliberate, active campaign to completely erase them, to make sure no former fighter could ever hold a position of power, to make sure their story was never, ever taught in schools. It was ruthless.
Okay, so when you're faced with that kind of betrayal, what do? Well, a response started to bubble up. At first it was quiet, it was underground, and it was driven by a whole new generation who felt that the original mission, the mission for true independence, was now on their shoulders.
And you can really see how this played out over time. Look at this timeline. In 1964, Kenya officially becomes a republic. Great. But then, just 2 years later, the main leftist opposition party gets completely crushed. Now, that sends a pretty clear message, right? Legal, open dissent? Not welcome here. According to the source, that left people feeling like they had no other choice but to go underground. And that's exactly what led to the secret formation of the Workers' Party of Kenya in 1974.
Now, to really get inside their heads, you have to understand this one key term, neo-colonial regime. For them, Kenya wasn't actually a free country. Sure, it was independent on paper, but in reality, they saw it as a state that was still totally dependent on foreign imperialist powers. And the local leadership, they called them the comprador bourgeoisie. Basically, a local ruling class that was governing in favor of those foreign interests, not for the actual people of Kenya. So, the big question is, how does a small, secret, underground movement even begin to fight back against an entire state? Well, according to these documents, their first battlefield wasn't physical. It was a war of ideas, a battle for the hearts and minds of the Kenyan people. And one of their main weapons? Their own press. They were publishing clandestine newspapers, like this one, Pambana, which means struggle. And this was a huge deal. The book says this was the very first underground paper since independence to just come right out and denounce the ruling class, and even call for its overthrow. I mean, talk about a direct challenge. This was incredibly risky stuff. But it wasn't just newspapers, not by a long shot. They were fighting this war on every possible front. They were distributing leaflets, staging these really powerful anti-imperialist political plays, organizing lectures and debates in the universities. They were even trying to form writers' unions and publishing their own revolutionary books. It was all about chipping away at the state's narrative and waking people up.
Well, you can bet the state didn't just sit back and let this happen. This war of ideas got a response, and it was a harsh one. The government started banning plays, intimidating artists, and then, in 1977, they made a huge example out of someone. They arrested the world-renowned writer Ngugi wa Thiong'o. This was the moment everyone realized, okay, this isn't just about ideas anymore. This battle has very real, very dangerous consequences.
And as the movement became more defiant, the state's crackdown just got more and more brutal. The source documents what happened next, and honestly, the price that people paid for daring to dissent, it was just incredible.
And let's be crystal clear about the stakes here. You can see it right in their own party constitution. This wasn't a movement that was just asking for a few reforms. No, their stated goal was the complete overthrow of the neo-colonial regime. For them, there was no middle ground. It was all or nothing.
And then you see something like this, the dedication page of the book. It's for those who sacrificed for democracy and social justice. This really just brings the human cost into sharp focus, doesn't it? It reminds you that behind all the political theory and revolutionary goals, there were real people who, the author tells us, paid an unbelievable price for what they believed in.
According to the source, the state, especially under the Moi regime that came after Kenyatta, just unleashed a terrifying wave of repression. The documents talk about everything: widespread arrests of students and academics, torture happening in prisons, key leaders being forced into exile, even having their citizenship stripped, and it goes on. Infiltration of the movement, political assassinations. The goal was to create this nationwide climate of absolute fear and to crush the movement for good.
But here's what's maybe the most incredible part of this whole story. Despite everything, the arrests, the torture, the exile, the movement didn't just collapse. It didn't just die out. These documents show how it kept going. It adapted. People were even organizing and writing from inside the walls of maximum security prisons. It just goes to show the struggle was simply too important for them to give up.
And all of this brings us right back to that final, powerful question, the one posed by the book's title. After hearing this story, a story about a dream that was put on hold, about a struggle that kept going long after the colonial flags came down, it makes you think, doesn't it? What does it really mean for a revolution to be unfinished?